Hello and welcome to the Swine Disease Reporting System. This is the podcast for the report 23, which is available in January of 2020. So we have a special guest here today, Dr. Cesar Corzo, joining from University of Minnesota. And as usual, my name is Daniel Linhares at Iowa State.
Hello, my name is Giovanni Trevisan from Iowa State.
Hello, my name is Edson Magalhães from Iowa State.
So in this report, we have lots to discuss. PRRS season is here. We see increasing activity in sow herds. We see still a high level of activity, relatively high level of activity in growth finish cases. And PD, Delta, Mycoplasma, those are aligned with expectation in terms of PCR detection. And in the disease diagnosis page, we will talk about high activity of detection of PRRS, flu, myco for respiratory, rotavirus, E. coli for enteric, and suis for central nervous system cases. But let's start as usual here in the page 1 of the report, which is about detection of PRRS RNA over time by PCR from the participating VDLs. In this page, the page starts with a collection of plots, and what I see here in the plots is that PRRS activity detection by PCR is within the forecasted levels for this time of the year. But when we look closer here in the plot D of the report, we see that the activity in win to market is kind of stabilized in that relatively high level, and the sow farm detection rate is the highest detection for December since 2013 and 14. So it's increasing compared to previous months and previous years. Giovanni, how do you interpret that? What do we take from the input that you got from our advisory council?
The advisory council did highlight for us that positive systems has been observing some outbreaks. On the other side, negative systems did not observe increased incidence. There is a field perception that the delayed pump season of the manure has been contributing for increased detection of the virus in some high-dense areas. Additionally to that, we have the reminder from the advisory council that biosecurity measures that were reported in the last report of December, the number 22, for observe people movements involving employees, maintenance guys, visitors, feed and animal transportation should be observed and complied with biosecurity measures to prevent the further spread of the virus among the farms.
Yeah, so interesting. So if I got that right, the increased activity of PRRS virus has been in those systems where they're typically stable or has some virus activity going on, and they have breaks or rebreaks, as opposed to the ones that are naive or negative for the virus. They still, at least though the advisory members and what they see, what they hear, they're still negative, right?
That's the perception that our advisory council has.
So Cesar, what's your take on that? Based on what you see and what you hear?
Yes, and I pretty much agree with what you're seeing, what you're hearing. Just to follow up on that last comment, on the biosecurity comment, some of you may have seen that we put out a science page maybe a week or two ago, and that we talk about those herds that are status 4 and the breaks in that population of herds that we've been seeing. We've been getting some reports of status 4 herds breaking, and we have compared that through time, and it's still reminding us that biosecurity continues to be kind of our main challenge, especially because those status 4 herds, most of the time they're going to be located in isolated regions, isolated areas, or low pig dense areas. And somehow we tend to drag the virus all the way out there to those herds. So I think that comment, I mean, it's pretty accurate in the sense that we know what to do, but sometimes compliance is not at 100%, and that's when we give this virus the opportunity to get to these herds.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on what we're seeing from an MSHIM perspective, cumulatively, I think we continue to follow the trend compared to last year, specifically last year. So we're at roughly 10.5% of the herds that have reported a break so far. Just to remind the audience, last year we ended up with 20% of the population of herds in our database reporting a break.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we pretty much reached our midpoint, and we just completed that half of that 20%. So we're kind of following that trend. Now, the interesting thing is, as I was listening to Giovanni, we've also heard the manure pumping as a factor, but also as a factor that has delayed a little bit the occurrence of outbreaks. Last year we heard the same thing, even though we kind of crossed our threshold last year pretty much at the same time as previous years. This year we kind of crossed the threshold again, late October, early November. So in some areas there's been some delayed manure pumping, even some late manure pumping. So it's pretty interesting that in those areas there may seem to be a delay in the presentation of outbreaks again. So still, there's a lot of noise in the data. It's something that we need to tease apart really well. Producers and practitioners and systems are helping us understand this phenomenon, right? But at least from an MSHIM perspective, from a U.S. Perspective, last year and this year, we kind of crossed our threshold pretty much at the same time.
Okay, and so based on what you said there, that there has been the manure pumping has been delayed compared to last year because of the rainfall, right? That was kind of delayed too. But anyways, the pumping season was delayed, and that's typically associated with outbreaks, and also looking at the relatively high activity in grow finish animals. Do we expect to see the PRRS incidence it's still gonna remain similar to what has been last year, which was relatively low compared to previous year? Or are we thinking that the PRRS season is still low in that 10.5%, but it's delayed and it's gonna continue to rise beyond the 20 some percent that was last year?
That's a great question, and I wish I could have an answer for that. But what we see is that we kind of reach our max number of cases per week, if you will, in the sense that our curve, when we look at our EWMA curve, it seems that we're already starting to go on a decreasing trend when it comes to number of cases. It's still a little bit early to conclude that way. Last year we had what we thought was going to be a decrease, but we went up again, and then we went down to low levels. So who knows what's going to happen this year? Even though I think we may have reached the maximum, maybe at this point there might not be more manure pumping, hopefully, because of what the temperature is like. So we'll see if that continues. Still, we continue to get some reports of outbreaks. There might not be manure pumping in those regions, in those areas, but still, the virus is still figuring out a way to get into those herds. So I wish I could have a better answer for you, but unfortunately, it's hard to predict at this point.
Yeah, good to hear that the incidence kind of has a trend of going down. Maybe have reached the plateau. Maybe hopefully that was the case. But like you said too, and Giovanni talked about that, the activity in grow finish is still pretty high. So that's another reminder of biosecurity out there, right? Viruses still out there. 44% of the cases coming from wing to finish pigs, they tested positive for PRRS still. And so just another reminder from the industry to tighten biosecurity and even though incidence may be going down, virus is still out there, and it's always good to refresh biosecurity, especially at this time of the year, right? Giovanni, another potential indicator for PRRS activity is looking at OR5 or cases that were submitted for OR5 sequencing, right? Assuming that the more people send, the higher the number of cases that people send for OR5 sequencing, that may reflect or have a correlation with unexpected positive results, and therefore wanting to further classify that virus. So, what type of data do you have here on that area of number of OR5 sequencing or RFLP data, and how does that help with this question of PRRS activity at this time of the year and going forward?
We scanned the Iowa State University RF5 sequence data at this moment. Hope that we are going to get the other labs in the near future to this database. But what we see during 2019 was that there was a decrease in the number of submissions with success of sequence from 4,400 to 3,900, and that was basically following the similar trend on the PCR detection at national level, that in the beginning of the year we had less number of submissions that had sequence requests, but now at the end of the year that we are seeing more activity in the percentage of positive results. We had more sequence with submissions requesting sequence. And among those, we monitor the RFLP types to see if we could find some trends over that. And what we saw was that some RFLP types, like the 112.4, the 183, and 142, had the major increase in the number of sequence that they got. On the other side, the RFLP 184 and 144 had similar number of sequence between 2018 and 2019. On the other side, some RFLP types like the 163 that we had 52 sequence in 2018 and was classified as a wild type, we did not recover any sequence in 2019. And the 174 and 252 had less sequences in this year. So we asked for the advisory council about those RFLP types, and they reported that there is not one of these RFLPs that is associated with major impact, as was the 174 when arised in 2013-14 in the US. But we see these trends of increased sequence in one and decrease in the other RFLPs.
So, long story short, this year, 2019, there was less number of cases submitted for OR5 compared to 2018.
That's
right,
correct.
which may indicate a more kind of less number of unexpected positive cases, and therefore people not going that extra mile to sequence the virus. And like you said, there were some viruses that increased in prevalence among the RFLPs that were detected, and some that increased, right? Some changes there, which is expected year over year. Cesar, what do you take on that? How can that data from OR5 sequencing and RFLPs and the types that are detected over time, how can the veterinarians, producers take best use of this information? What does it all mean?
You know, that's a great question as well, and I think it's obtaining OR5 are at least it's a starting point. We kind of monitor that as well, in that whenever our participants, they kindly give us the report, they give us the RFLPs and the sequences. We kind of try to follow those trends. And for example, for this season, we see more lineage 1, meaning 184s, 174s.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some odds like 112s or 112.4s, that they may also fall in lineage 1 in some cases. So I think it's a way to track diversity, and like you say, these unexpected results, the best thing we can do is just try to get a sequence. But what we're starting to see is that the language is starting to change from an R5 to a lineage definition kind of thing, in that R5s today, we can talk about 2 174s that may be so different. So I think by getting to that stage, we're going to be able to understand in a better way whether my 184 is different or not to your 184 when it comes to unexpected results. So I think it's a way of tracking whether these are wholly new viruses or just viruses that are within systems that they just bounce back into the sow herd, or they just don't want to leave the sow herd. So we tend to see a little bit of that newly emerging virus, not emerging, but these newly introduced viruses to some systems. Of course, within those, there might be some viruses that have some mutations in there, so might be kind of responding to what we're doing out there with our immunity, with our immune intervention. So, I mean, it's hard to tell whether this is a reflection of diversity or whether it's a reflection of whether we're doing something wrong when it comes to biosecurity. Of course, we know that there's opportunities there, but yeah, that's kind of my take, Daniel. I don't know if that helps, in the sense that it's kind of sometimes tricky to tease apart R5 and the disease occurrence.
Yeah, like you said, important to keep track and keep an eye on it and see something really going up. Then gotta ask the follow-up question and further investigate, right? From these databases, maybe hard, like you said, to understand what's clinically relevant, what's not, but at least we can start asking what questions to ask and further investigate some specific RFLPs that maybe are on the rise or behaving a little bit different from the others, right? And you said that talked about the lineages, and people also talk about whole genome sequencing, and with the technology being improved and prices going down, maybe in a few years we have more information beyond RFLP to further understand diversity over time and what that all means.
And
also the other part I know is that the more we get into the specifics of these newly introduced viruses and try to characterize them, the more we do that and the more we share the data, the more tools we're going to be able to have down the road to try to do a better outbreak investigation, and we continue to ask ourselves, where are all these viruses coming from, right? But the more we get these fingerprints with the locations, with the dates, the more we're going to be able to put this in the same database, and we may be at some point lucky to say, hey, this virus was found 2-3 weeks ago, 50 miles away. What's the epidemiological connection between these two sites? And that's where the discussion needs to go, right? How did that virus ended up in our farm? So I think we're going in that direction, I think.
Yes, love it.
And I just want to make a comment here. The advisory council requests us to develop or redesign dashboards online. So we did that and are available in the SDRS webpage, the new format. So everybody is welcome to take a look on that and see the new format that's on?
Oh yeah, the new format of the was just reminding the audience the dashboard is at fieldepi.org/SDRS, and the dashboard that Giovanni is talking about is the running chart. So it's a dynamic that the bars change year over year, so people can appreciate the changes in the prevalence of RFLPs in the database over time. Okay, all right. Anything else regarding PRRS and PRRS detection over time? Good to go? All right, so let's flip the page here and let's talk about detection, still by PCR, of enteric coronaviruses. So, Giovanni, what I see here in the plots, in the 8 plots, summary of those is that PD, detection of PD and Delta coronaviruses by PCR, it's within the expected for the most part, with some signals beyond expected for both of those, for TGE and Delta coronaviruses. So long story short, there is slightly above the expected or within the band, but in the upper level with some signals. Can you give us a little bit more details on what age groups and perspectives from the advisory group on that?
Yes, the highest detection that we are observing right now, it's occurring in winter-marked cases, and that is basically observed as a sequence of a little spike that we had in October on adult sow farms. The advisory council provided us some inputs that there was some outbreaks, but there was also some accidentally contamination of some sow farms due to plant guilt exposure. So those animals moved to the field and could have been some of those detection occurring. On the other side, the advisory council remember us that this is the period of the year that the cold weather could be helping for the virus survivability. The winter-marked farms has low biosecurity compliance when compared with the adult sow farms, so that may be a factor that helps to spread the virus among farms. And we are facing a different trends in the marketing of the animals. Right now there is a potential short turnaround in the barns due to removal of some feed additives like ractopamine, some production system that may be contributing for this short period between the removal of the animals and the placement, what difficult for the cleaning and disinfection of the barns and place the animals on very clean environment.
Yeah, those are good perspectives on those spikes. So again, another reminder of virus circulating mostly in win to finish type of pigs, and another reminder of the importance of biosecurity, right? To keep that virus there and away from there. Any other comments on this page?
One just to follow up on that. When we look at PD, and so we continue to see like a low incidence of PD as well. One of the things that we like to track is from those herds that break on the MSHIP fiscal year, we also like to show whether they have had some historical breaks. And today, out of the handful that have reported a break, most of them, except 2, have had some historical PED activity. Going back to what Giovanni is saying, that there might be these herds located in high dense regions, but also this goes back to, since at least we get to see the location, not necessarily all of the time we see these breaks in the locations where there might be some plant exposure. We also see them in random areas, which goes back to the biosecurity point of, if we see these in random areas, that means that the virus must be either we brought it in with a truck or might be in close proximity to these herds. So we go back again to asking ourselves, where is that virus lingering in those surrounding populations to these farms that ends up on the farm and just creating this break. So we always go back to the same question about biosecurity. Where do we still have the opportunities? So might be, it's an interesting one as well.
Yeah, great comment. All right, so moving on to the mycoplasma detection by PCR page. Giovanni, here the detection of mycoplasma by PCR is following your forecast plot here, so detection really within the expected range. Any further comment on that?
No, we did not have any further input from the advisory council.
Yeah, so when I say following the expected, is in a linear trend to decrease detection over time, which is predicted or forecasted by the model for this time of the year. Any further comment on mycoplasma? All right, so let's move now to the last page of the report. Just reminding everyone, the previous pages were about detection of pathogen nucleic acid, either DNA or RNA, by PCR. So that's all it means, detection by PCR. And now in this the last page, it's about disease diagnosis. So it's beyond just detection. This is based on what the diagnostician or the pathologist in the VDL, what he or she assigned as being the cause of that lesion, right? And we separate here by physiologic system, respiratory, digestive, nervous, so on and so forth. And long story short here, Giovanni, I think is that for respiratory diseases, PRRS and influenza continue to be the most common, say, bad guys associated with the respiratory cases. Digestive disease diagnosis, rotavirus is the number one by far, followed by E. coli and Salmonella. And a nervous system diagnosis, strep suis, remains to be the number one by far. Some over almost 75% here is 43% of all the nervous diagnosis system is assigned to Streptococcus suis, and all the rest is a combination of many other pathogens. What else? Was there any signal based on the algorithms that you monitor for increased detection for any particular disease, or what did you find?
When we scan this database for diagnosis of specific agents, we found signals for PRRS and PED between November 1st and December 15th. So they are also the agents that we monitor for PCR, and we see this increased detection on PCR. So looks like there is association between both of the systems here. And besides of that, we did not find any other very relevant major number of signals.
Okay. Any other comments? So all within kind of what you're saying is that within kind of expected, right?
Right.
All right. So I think that was it. One of the highlights that we had here today, we discussed a lot from the PRRS and then the enteric coronaviruses page, is just the importance of the role that grow finish sites that they play on the ecology of maintaining those PRRS, enteric coronaviruses infection, and just another reminding of the importance of tackling that important phase of production to better understand and intervene and bring pressure of infection down in the industry, right? Any other last comments? So thank you again. Thank you, Edison, Giovanni, Cesar, for your time. Really appreciate it. And that's what we had for the report 23, the swine disease reporting system. And see you next month.
See you.
See you.